Hey everyone, I'm Megyn Kelly. Welcome to the Megyn Kelly Show. We've got a big show for you today. Actor Zachary Levi will be here to discuss his new movie and how the RFK HHS is doing as year one comes to a close. A new poll just hit on him. But first, there is news today on the suspected January 6th pipe bomber, and it's a doozy. Courtesy of the New York Post. We are learning some very strange things about this guy's background. Plus, why didn't the FBI track him down thanks to that cell phone tower data earlier? Remember when Kash was on last week and he said that's how they got his name. They did the cell phone tower tracking and his name emerged. So his number was sitting there all along. It didn't take much to then get a name from it. Why didn't Chris Wray do that? Seriously, why didn't he do it? Why? Well, we now have some more information on that. And you will not believe how far-left Democrat Jasmine Crockett plans to appeal to Texas voters in her just-announced Senate campaign. If you heard AM Update this morning, you got a little preview. And we have got Stu Burguiere here to tell us if she's got a shot. He's a Texas man. Stu is host of Stu Does America on Blaze TV. Don't miss a moment. Subscribe to this show on YouTube and follow me on Insta, Facebook, and X. Think about December. After all the hustle and bustle, what's the moment you most look forward to? It might be slowing down, cozying up, just being present. And that's why I love Cozy Earth. Their gifts feel more like experiences, helping you recharge long after the holidays. If you are thinking about who deserves a gift that truly helps them relax, your partner, your parents, best friend, or yourself, Cozy Earth has you covered, literally. Their bamboo sheets are the gift of better sleep. Made from viscose from bamboo for an incredibly soft feel, they keep you cozy without overheating. And the Bubble Cuddle Blanket, the ultimate cozy gift. With its textured bubble design and ultra-soft faux fur feel, it's perfect for snuggling by the fire. Every Cozy Earth product comes with a 100-night sleep trial and a 10-year warranty. Head to CozyEarth.com. Use code Megyn for up to 40% off. Just order by December 12th for Christmas delivery. After the 12th, my code Megyn still works year-round for 20% off. And if you get a post-purchase survey, tell them you heard about Cozy Earth from this show. Stu, welcome back. Great to see you.
Great to see you as well, Megyn. Thank you.
I'm sure you're feeling all warm and fuzzy about Jasmine Crockett as your possible next Texas State U.S. Senator.
I will say this, Megyn. I absolutely adore the fact that she's running for this office. I want her to run for every office. I want her to go state to state and let everybody experience the glory and wonders of Jasmine Crockett. I can't love her any more than I do. And she's completely nuts.
That just as a standalone is an objectively true sentence. And I share in it.
It really is. I find her incredibly entertaining and so bizarre and just the perfect distillation of everything about the modern Democratic Party. She never, ever knows what she's talking about. Ever. There's never a moment she even slips up and connects with something that might be accurate. It's so incredible. And what's great about her, I think, is the fact that you could be we know Republicans, we know Democrats, we know people who are in Congress. Many of them slave away for years and years and years and years. Democrats are working on, some healthcare expansion, and they're working on, how do we reverse 0.9 degrees Celsius temperature rise over a century, all the really important things. And they'll be working on these policies quietly, and they will never get a call from a booker. They will never get a call from anyone interested in any of the work they're doing. And Jasmine Crockett can just come out and say the most insane, bat crap, crazy nonsense. And she doesn't get booked.
Yeah, go Jasmine.
I love her. She doesn't get booked just on MSNBC. She's sitting across from Colbert. She's doing Kimmel. She has every booking that you'd want if you were releasing a mainstream film in 4,000 theaters. And for what? All of the incentives perfectly line up for her to continue this bizarre behavior and just show her crazy to everybody over and over again. I love her.
Okay, I'll get back to her, maybe. I don't really care about her that much. By all accounts, she has zero chance of winning this race, so it's going to be fun to sort of kick her around for a while, but good luck in Texas, madam. I wanted to start, actually, I was going to start with this pipe bomb news, but then just as we came to air, I saw the New York Times article on Kamala Harris. It was tweeted by Dan Turrentine, our pal of Democrat fame. And he said, I've long been saying she is going to run again. And it's an in-depth profile of Kamala Harris by the New York Times. The question, I love, this is classic Kamala. They asked her, should the party veer left and get more progressive, like we saw with somebody like Mamdani, who's not even progressive, he's communist, or should it veer to the center, like like Abigail Spamberger, who's their idea of center, even though she wants boys playing in girls' sports, the new governor of Virginia, elect. And her answer, Kamala Harris's answer is, okay, so should we veer left or stay center? We have to stand for the people. I know that sounds corny. That's her answer, Stu. She's still just as inane as ever. And it's so funny to me because she knows there's something wrong with her answer, right? She knows it's off and it will satisfy and be meaningful to no one. So she kind of punctuates it with like a disclaimer. It's corny. My belief is, no, it has nothing to do with corny. Like corny is a weird dad joke, right? That's what corny is. This is just empty. It's utterly meaningless. It says absolutely nothing, which I will grant you is her signature. I mean, in and of itself, it's kind of specially hers. But what should the party do at this time of crisis for them when they're not sure whether to go radical or go centrist? Then her answer is, quote, we have to stand for the people.
It's so good.
She hasn't improved. That's our takeaway.
Yes, she is still the vapid zilch that we knew she was as she was running for president. And it is, she's kind of the reverse of Crockett in a way. Like Crockett, just every thought that comes into her head just comes blurting out. Like she's ranting about how maybe the solution to all of our problems is that we don't tax black people anymore. That's a legitimate policy proposal from a woman running for Senate in Texas. Okay, yeah, we should do racially based taxes. That's certainly constitutional. But beyond that, then you have Kamala, who is most of the time trying to do the opposite, right? Like trying to basically survive the moment because she's not quick enough on her feet to come up with a real answer. She doesn't seem to really have thought about basic things, about her campaign and her positions. Probably most famously, you'll remember.
Like the future of her party? That seems like something you'd spend a few minutes on. Yeah. Maybe she's out on this nationwide book tour. Did that ever come up such that you can give a better answer than we have to stand for the people? Can you imagine J.D. Vance across from her if they actually wind up being the nominees?
That would be so good. Probably the most concerning thing is maybe she did put a lot of time into thinking and coming up with that answer, which is maybe the worst thing. But if you remember back in the campaign, there was that moment where she went on, I think it was The View. Yeah, it was The View. I remember watching it, sitting in the studio, looking up at the TV with absolute amazement as she couldn't come up with one thing that she disagreed with that they had done during the entire term. No disagreement with Joe Biden on any policy, couldn't come up with anything. And it was at that moment, honestly, that I thought she was toast. I thought it was over in that moment. It was the biggest gift you could have possibly given to Donald Trump, who benefits from the dumbest enemies possible over and over and over again.
Yeah.
But that is her way, right? It's almost like a survival instinct. She thinks if she can kind of get through the moment and get off camera, everything will be fine. But maybe that works once or twice. We see that from spokespeople from time to time, PR people that will avoid an issue, and that can be a successful tactic in the short term.
Or even CEOs.
Yeah.
CEOs of like random companies sometimes do that, but not CEOs of the United States of America. Like you cannot become a president with that. Like just don't let anything stick to me. Eventually you have to answer real questions. So here's a little bit more from it. By the way, the New York Times points out that she's been calling all these Democrats who won their elections, like Mamdani, like Spanberger, and others who won in the most recent November election. They said, quote, the exact kind of thing a person planning to run for president might do. The Times is clearly dangling this as the closest she's gotten to telegraphing she's going to run in 2028. And here's another little piece for you to mull on. Her place in history is already secure, and she knows it, writes the Times. Quote, quoting her, I understand the focus on 28 and all that, but there will be a marble bust of me in Congress. I am a historic figure, like any vice president of the United States ever was. That's her saying, try to understand, I'm already historic, New York Times reporters, no matter what I do in 2028. So get it straight. Historic, right here. Herstory. That's what you're looking at. Right now.
Oh, it's so good. I will say, in a sense, I agree. She is historic in the sense that her political career is history. That is actually true. I would agree with her on that framing of it. But
it's such an interesting combination of like nothing but banal thoughts combined with narcissism. Like, that's, is that a common combination? The Jasmine Crockett combo makes more sense to me, where you're loud, you're brash, you call attention to yourself with your words, you at least try to say things that you think are going to get attention, and then you're narcissistic. But like Kamala Harris, who like literally has never said anything smart or interesting, to be like, I'm historic, hello. Or maybe it's not narcissism, maybe it's deep insecurity manifesting in a demand that she be recognized for this fake, thing that we're supposed to be impressed by, which is her bust in the U.S. Congress. We're not. We're not. What do you think?
Well, first of all, I'd like you to stop talking about Kamala Harris's bust. I don't think that's appropriate, and I don't like it at all. But I think it is.
Don't like the way I feel.
It is interesting, and I think I don't. Again, I'm trying. This is me trying to do analysis of this person in their brain, but it strikes me as like she might be honest enough in quiet moments with herself to realize the only thing she's ever really achieved is a job / skin color / genital combination. Like she might just be really aware of that. And when she's talking about her opinions, there's nothing there. That's not why she got where she did. The way she got where she did. And again, I don't want to go back to Kamala Harris's bust here. Some of that relates to her early career. But as we've moved on through life, she has graduated, I guess, to a person who legitimately, I mean this as an actual compliment, in a way, she's legitimately good in those behind the scenes moments when she's trying to, she did this in California. She did this when Biden decided to step down, to really like pressure people and get them in line with her political aspirations, donors, big wigs. She does a good job with that. And it's really the only thing she does a good job with. So really she can't talk about that publicly because that's not a skill that people appreciate. So the skill that they appreciate, I guess, is, hey, glass ceiling. Hey, first black this, first black that, first Indian this, like all the things that she comes up with on our identity. And she thinks that's going to win over at least Democrats. I don't think there's any desire. I don't think there's any hunger, even on the Democratic side, to see her back doing this again. I think they feel a little icky after that whole experience, and they want to move on with their lives. I would too. But I don't think there's a future here for her. Do you?
Stop crapping on her chances, scuba gear. That's all I know. Let's encourage it. She can do it.
She's
That's
great.
your racism and your sexism showing, sir, obviously. Here's what she wants you to know, okay? Ye of little faith. This is what the Times writes. After years of being hailed as the future, quote, the female Barack Obama label came as early as 2009. What a joke. When she was still just a DA. Ms. Harris is suddenly at risk of her time having passed. Yet people aren't just showing up for her. They're paying to see her, writes the Times. Then they quote her. Thousands of people are coming to hear my voice. Thousands and thousands, she says. Every place we've gone has been sold out. Now, first of all, who talks about themselves like that? Like, I just finished a nationwide tour. Thousands came to hear my voice. Like, nobody talks about themselves like that, And I actually asked my team to take a look at like the average size of the venues that she goes to. 700, maybe like 1,200, 1,500. I'm sorry, but you should be able to fill that like just by saying you're going to swing by for 2 minutes as a former vice president. The fact that she's super proud, she's filling theaters that seat 700 is embarrassing. It's embarrassing. I mean, not for nothing, but out on our tour, we were filling 6,000, 8,000. Our last venue was close to 12,000. I'm not a vice president, and I'm certainly not the person who was just nominated as the, a party nominee who just ran for president. This is why she thinks she's relevant, and she's got to brag about it, right? Thousands and thousands to hear my voice. And the Times goes along with it, and they're paying to see her. This is a book promo tour, and there are almost always young Black women filling these audiences because to them, she's a hero, right? She's like, as she will quickly remind you, the first this, the first that, and represents a certain brand of identity politics that's super popular within the Democrat Party, and in particular, the Black female wing of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's fascinating that she'd be excited about that, right? If she could have filled 10,000, 12,000 seat arenas like you did on your tour, I mean, I saw it in person, I saw it in footage in all cities across America. If she could have done the same, Megyn, I assure you she would have, right? This is not, they weren't we want to limit these sales. And what's fascinating is... And
by the way, you had to pay to get into my events too. Yeah. They weren't free. Hello.
Exactly. It was, people wanted to come to them. It wasn't, a responsibility to say, oh gosh, I just want to be a partner in history or whatever. But I mean, step back for a second here. This is a person who ran for president, won a vice president presidency term in the vice president office, and also just received, not that long ago, tens of millions of votes to be president of the United States against a person that everyone in her party absolutely despises and calls Hitler on a day-to-day basis. You'd think it'd be easy to fill a 10,000 seat arena in every city in America. I mean, she got a lot of votes. But those votes were out of sort of a default, right? People who just didn't like Donald Trump and were looking for any other option. There was never a moment of passion for Kamala Harris. I would argue even within the Biden administration. I mean, they spent a lot of their time trying to convince reporters behind the scenes how much she sucked at the job. So, I mean, I'm sure maybe her family likes her. I'm sure there's a few stragglers where you can fill small arenas or small, not even arena. Small, I don't know, venues, restaurants. I don't know what's a 700 seat
restaurants,
venue. Right? I'm sure that you can do that, but it is
diners,
diners, drive-ins, and dives. You can do all those, but there's not much more beyond that. And even the people who cast the vote were doing it with a kind of shrugging their shoulders and please stop Donald Trump attached to it, and that doesn't create a movement. Again, you talk about the vapid speech. This is someone who's trying to be a leader, who's supposed to be a leader of the nation. You're supposed to have takes on major issues. That's supposed to be part of the reason why people want to come to you, and she just has none of it.
I keep having to look down to remember what she said about her stance on where the party should go because it's so inane. My mind is not capable of holding on to it. We have to stand for the people. I know that sounds corny. Stand for the people. Okay. By the way, that was her campaign slogan. Remember? Because she had been a DA. They, Kamala Harris for the people. That they used that many times in her campaign. So it's not even something she came up with. It's not something that's near and dear to her heart. It's something that she's parlaying off of. That some campaign operative who got paid some of those $1 billion drafted for her. And now she thinks it's a profundity, like she always does with things that she says. And she wants to push it on us in the New York Times. Josh Shapiro is in the news on Kamala Harris right now. He's, of course, the governor of Pennsylvania. She took shots at him in her book. She was nasty about him in her book. She wrote how he came to interview for the vice presidential role, that Tim Walz ultimately got. And she paints him as kind of a douchebag, that he was basically measuring the drapes for his vice presidential residence and office upon the interview, to the point where she had to tell him, it's not a co-vice presidency it's not a co-presidency, Josh. And he was told about her book by a reporter who was with him, profiling him for The Atlantic, I think it was. And this person wrote about how that went over, where he said, hey, her book just said, it was Tim Alberta in The Atlantic. And he said to Josh Shapiro, this is just last week, this is what she said about you. And then he said, did she give you any heads up about her book? Shapiro said, no, she didn't. Then I told him that Harris had taken some shots at him. Shapiro furrowed his brow and crossed his arms. Okay, he said. The man I observed, writes Alberta, over the next several minutes was unrecognizable. Gone was his equilibrium. He moved between outrage and exasperation as I relayed the excerpts. Harris had accused him, in essence, of measuring the drapes, even inquiring about featuring Pennsylvania artists in the vice presidential residence, of insisting, quote, that he would want to be in the room for every decision, end quote, Harris might make, and more generally of hijacking the conversation when she interviewed him for the job, to the point where she reminded him he would not be co-president. She wrote that in her book, he said in response. That's complete and utter bullshit. I can tell you her accounts are just blatant lies, he writes. Then I asked, says Alberta, whether he felt betrayed. Quote from Shapiro. I mean, she's trying to sell books and cover her ass, Shapiro snapped. The governor stared past me now, shaking his head. As I began to ask a different question, he held up a hand. He looked disgusted. With me? With Harris? No. I began to realize he was disgusted with himself. I shouldn't say cover her ass. I think that's not appropriate. His tone was suddenly collected. She's trying to sell books, period. Well, Shapiro just got asked about that by a reporter on MS Now on Monday. Here's how that went in SOT 18.
Former Vice President Kamala Harris here. It says, I mean, she's trying to sell books and cover her ass. Sorry, we're standards. Shapiro snapped, I shouldn't say cover her. Word I shouldn't say on standards. I think that's not appropriate, Shapiro said. His tone was suddenly collected. She's trying to sell books, period. What were you trying to signal in that moment, sir? You want to parse this out for us?
No, there's no parsing. Look, I stand by what I said. I think the way in which the author described my emotion, frankly, was not accurate. But the words are mine, and I stand by them. I think what was relayed to me by that author that the vice president had written about me just simply wasn't true. And, you know, I think the vice president and I had and continue to have very candid conversations. And I think the way in which it was articulated to me, what was said was certainly not accurate.
No one likes her. That's the bottom line, Stu. Pete Buttigieg doesn't like her now. Gavin Newsom was just taking a shot at her. Josh Shapiro basically called her an asshole. She's made more enemies than she had even when she was running, which is not how you become the Democratic primary winner.
No, that's true. And it's, I guess, maybe the strategy, if there is one, and we're assuming there is, maybe the strategy is to try to paint these people she views as potential opponents in that primary in a negative light, right? Like, hey, they weren't supportive, they didn't help. She keeps doing this to people who, almost definitely are running for president. I mean, Shapiro's going to run, Buttigieg is going to run. I would be really surprised if both of them didn't get in the race. And I think that
Newsom's going to run.
Yeah, I mean, Newsom's as sure a thing as he's been running since I don't know, certainly before 2020. Yeah. I think he was running for president in a way. He loves himself very much and is very excited about his own leadership. But I think, that might be her tactic here. Again, she's not good at this, though. She's not a good tactician. She doesn't really know how to do any of these things. And she surprisingly, in a moment where she should have created distance during the campaign after Biden steps down, she should have been it might have helped her to say, look, I tried to communicate over and over again to the president that the border situation, while I love, legal immigrants and illegal immigrants, we want to do the best for them. I don't think that we were handling that appropriately and we needed to do more. And we had a disagreement on that, but he was the president of the United States. There was a path to go there that was not dismissive of the president and highly critical, but was just say, hey, there's a little bit of separation between us. She couldn't even do that. And now she's getting into this race with people who she views as her opponents and just trashing them, not on policy, not on any, legitimate thing, just like, oh, well, he wanted the job too much, which really should be a qualification for even being considered for it. So,
and she didn't,
yeah, right.
She really had to be talked into it by Joe Biden. Well, we'll continue to watch it, but I agree with the Times that she's doing the things presidential candidates do. And I'd be very surprised if she walks away. Few people do from power, and she clearly has something to prove. My bust is in the U.S. Congress. Sorry, Stu, I did it again. Okay, I want to move on to this news about the accused pipe bomber from January 6th. Things are kind of interesting here. First, okay, there's a pair of reports here. My God, I don't know if you saw this, but today the New York Post is reporting that the suspect, Brian Cole Jr., quote, has secret online life, obsessing over My Little Pony. I'm sorry. This is a thing. So my dear friend took her daughters when they were young to a My Little Pony convention that was coming to town at a hotel. She was like, "Oh yeah, that's fun. You know, my daughters love My Little Pony," not understanding that it's actually for pervy men. It's not actually. These conventions are not for little girls. They are for pervy men, many of whom are connected to the furry community who will show up there. It's a very bizarre situation. Now, there's no allegation in this piece that this pipe bomber is a furry, but what adult male is obsessed with My Little Pony? I'm sorry, there's something wrong with that person. And what the Post reports is he was highly active My Little Pony fan. He was seemingly obsessed with the toys marketed at young girls, creating art of plastic pony dolls, remixes of songs about them, and writing fan fiction dedicated to them. His works, writes the Post, are spread across various social media accounts linked to his email and phone number. Posting as iDelta Velocity, he apparently uploaded 87 pictures of My Little Pony fan art to one forum, showing various pony and unicorn characters. One is depicted with a bionic leg brace. He appears to favor pink or purple ponies with long, multicolored manes. In one post, a Star Wars-inspired pony says in a speech bubble, "I'm not cute, I'm deadly," which Cole says is a line from a video game, Star Wars: The Old Republic. A Tumblr account focuses on My Little Pony art, which used one of his usernames somebody who has his username commented on a drawing of a pony with an M60 machine gun, writing, I'd give her an RPG. What can I say? Explosions are cool, referring to a rocket-propelled grenade launcher. Very interesting to have the potential pipe bomber talking about how explosions are cool in all caps. Then they explain to their audience, a man who is part of the My Little Pony community subculture is known as a brony. And they reference the fact that as of 2017, this is a large enough subculture that they were holding annual conventions. Didn't I tell you? And we actually pulled some video from one of those conventions just so you could get a look-see, Stu Spergier. I mean, I know you haven't been, but let's take a little look at what you might encounter if you were to go to the next one.
There's no straight bronies. They just haven't met me yet.
I've met plenty of straight bronies. They're fine. They can come to my rodeo anytime. Oh my God.
Do you ever kiss these dolls?
No. I snuggle, but that's about it.
What do you think of guys that are into My Little Pony?
Nothing wrong with it. Guys who cosplay My Little Pony are hot. They're hot.
What do you like about My Little Pony?
It's innocent.
The characters themselves are very cute. I like the music, and I love Pinkie Pie, and how she boings, and how she defies gravity.
Why so many people like it? Because it stops them feeling lonely. Because they see cute little colorful animals on screen, and they kind of wish their friends were like that.
Maybe I should be Pinkie Pie.
There you go. Here, you can hold like this. Yay! Yay!
Why is it so popular now with adult men?
I think because a lot of them want to sleep with Fluttershy.
Do you want to hook up with Fluttershy?
Yeah. I don't think you even have to ask.
Oh my God, Stu. I actually dispute that that's not furry culture. That is furry culture. There's something very off about those people. I think we can all agree. It wasn't all men. It was a fair amount of women too. Some of whom the men want to sleep with some character in the My Little Pony world. And I think that this guy's interest in this community will come as a surprise to approximately no one.
Not at all. Absolutely no one. And I do want to say that I was going to wear a horse head for this interview. I'm so glad I didn't. It would have matched. It would have been very awkward.
So awkward.
It's not surprising at all, is it, Megyn? And I don't know about you, but like there are first couple of incidents we had here with people in this generalized community, whether it's the trans community, the furry community, or the brony community, committing acts of violence. I kind of had I had a nerdy reaction to it, which was like, I don't know, is this really supported? Is it just one person and we're all kind of noticing it because this is, kind of bizarre lifestyle? And then they just keep piling up. The incidents keep piling up and piling up and piling up. And we're talking about, some of the major stories of our lifetime. Charlie Kirk, tied to these communities. I mean, many of these have happened. And I think it's real and in a way not surprising when you kind of drill down and think about what the process is, particularly in the trans community, but also I would assume in the brony community at some level. I assume, by the way, most bronies are not committing violent acts. I don't want to paint too broad a brush on this wonderful community. But it's true that I think there is a connection there with one trait across all of these communities, which is a lack of connection to reality at some level, right? Mm-hmm. The idea that you can't recognize,
real humans.
Right? Like we can't recognize what gender you are. Like that is a major situation like going on with you. And if you're dealing with it, I'm sorry about that, but like that's a major problem. Like it's something that you're not necessarily connected to reality. If you are, maybe dressing up as a furry animal and thinking, living a good chunk of your lifestyle in a mascot uniform. Again, it's a strange choice at the very least, and I'd put the brony situation in that category as well. I think that's a connection. I think that's a real thing, because when you are fantasizing about all of these different situations that no one else around you can recognize, no one else around you sees, you're seeing things that other people don't see. We typically arrange that with a problem of recognizing reality. And when you have that,
a delusional disorder.
Yeah, and maybe that is connected to taking an action like shooting a father in front of thousands of people is rational. It's not rational. It's not rational thought. But when you get down these roads and you have the lack of ability to connect a foundation of shared understanding with the rest of the people around you, it's not surprising you take erratic action, everything from a violent action to maybe dressing up as a pony.
You mentioned Charlie's shooter. Tyler Robinson is the man accused of that crime and whom I believe 100% is responsible for that crime. My only real question, and it was confirmed as a subject of inquiry currently by FBI Director Kash Patel, is whether trans Tifa had a role in it, whether some of these more radicalized trans people out in the community either knew about it or possibly helped. So that remains to be seen. But I have zero doubt Tyler Robinson was the shooter. So he was connected with furry culture and the trans community. Thomas Crooks connected with furry culture and went by they, them. Now you got this accused pipe bomber. This is a new one, to be honest, like connected to the My Little Pony. But I'm telling you, I wasn't surprised one bit because of my friend's experience. I remember we were like, Christina, no, this is, you're going to get an eyeful. And sure enough, she did. She sent us pictures from the convention center, like it was at a hotel. And my friends and I were all laughing. She's like this innocent mom with her two girls. Anyway, they're just not for nothing because Debbie Murphy pulled it. For those of you not familiar with My Little Pony, here's a little ad for My Little Pony. It's marketed appropriately to little girls, who is the target audience. What'd you say, Deb? Oh, it's from the 80s, of course. Yes, we all remember. Here we go.
My little pony, my little pony. I comb and brush her hair. My little pony, my little pony. Tie a ribbon to show how much I care. My little pony, my little pony. I take her wherever I go. My little pony, my little pony. Oh, I love her
all little
so.
Girls
I love you, my
brushing
little
the hair of their
pony.
ponies.
My Little Pony, each sold separately. Collect them all.
Yeah. Only now we have the modern day pipe bomber twist of, I give her an RPG. Explosions are cool. Trying to get either a machine gun or an RPG into the hooves of the My Little Pony. And there's more on this accused pipe bomber, Brian Cole Jr. A former high school classmate told the Washington Post that Cole had carried a My Little Pony backpack, and it will come as a surprise to no one, had been teased for it, because that is not something any normal, straight, non-furry man would ever do. And then the Post points the following out, New York Post. The subculture of bronies was very online and unique and attracted a lot of male fans who were breaking gender norms, which attracted a lot of attention, said Dr. Daniel Chadbourne, an assistant professor of psychology who wrote the book, Meet the Bronies, the psychology of the adult My Little Pony fandom. Okay, so he says a lot of male fans who are breaking gender norms. I'm telling you, it's all part of the same effed up mental sickness still. He goes on to say the subculture here was not generally sexual, but he's not surprised that within the community, some of its members are troubled. Someone who is disaffected is often going to look for spaces to engage in for a sense of identity and belonging. This is all further evidence that these truly, like, for too long, we've been treating them all as harmless little kinks or fetishes or just differences. And I'm sorry, they're not harmless. Like, they can be, but I would suggest to you that the majority of people who are drawn to furry culture, and certainly the people who find themselves declaring that they are trans, have serious psychological issues that you are better to stay away from. And we are better as a society if we can seriously treat early as opposed to indulging it. Now, I want to go on because there's actual news about this investigation that's very interesting, Stu, and it comes to us from Miranda Devine in a piece she posted on December 7th, 2 days ago, then updated yesterday. Okay, and it's about this alleged shooter, first for him from his grandmother, who says, quote, he's very naive, he's almost autistic-like, he doesn't understand a lot of stuff. She says he's slow. He may be 30, but he's got the mind of a 16-year-old. Now, that could be true, or it could be a grandma trying to say he's not smart enough to be a pipe bomber. Don't know. Then Miranda gets into the following. How did Christopher Wray's FBI allegedly miss the phone used by the suspect in the vicinity of the DNC and RNC headquarters on the evening of January 5th when the pipe bombs were planted? Because Kash Patel told me when he came on the show on Friday that he believes it was intentional, that it wasn't just a mistake, but not intentional like I don't want to catch a would-be killer, intentional of like, I want to focus on Russiagate. I want to focus on other things that are bad for Trump and not this anymore. But she asked this question in part because we saw in the FBI affidavit in support of this guy's arrest that Cole's cell phone, quote, engaged in approximately 7 data session transactions with his cell phone provider's towers between 7:39 and 8:24 p.m. in the area of the RNC and DNC on January 5th, 2021, locating him at the right place at the right time. That info was obtained by the FBI within weeks of the discovery of the pipe bombs. And she accurately points out it took the FBI nearly 5 years, though, to track down and arrest Cole Jr. Then she brings up the case of Steve D'Antuono. Steve D'Antuono, D''Antuono, was head of the FBI's Washington field office until his retirement in December 22, who was in charge of the crucial first year of the pipe bomb case, as well as the Capitol riot investigation. He was assigned to Washington 1 month before the 2020 election from his previous role in Detroit, where he ran the disastrous Gretchen Whitmer Fednapping case that resulted in multiple mistrials and acquittals amid claims of FBI entrapment. This is Miranda writing correctly. D'Antuono, who has since found a job at KPMG, also led the controversial FBI raid on Mar-a-Lago. This guy's like right in the middle of some of the most controversial FBI actions in history. In any case, in June 2023, he testified before Congress too, claiming that the FBI had received corrupted data in the pipe bomb case from one of the 3 major cell phone carriers, and that may have been the reason the FBI could not find the pipe bomber. He said, and I quote, "We did a complete geofence, but there's some data that was corrupted by one of the providers, not purposely by them. It was just an unusual circumstance that we have corrupt data from one of the providers. Can't remember which one right now, but for that day, which is awful because we don't have that information to search now. So could it have been that provider? Yeah. With our luck, with this investigation, it probably was. Yet all 3 of the cell phone carriers contacted by the congressional committee now investigating the pipe bomb case confirmed to Congress that they, quote, did not provide corrupted data to the FBI and that the FBI never informed them of any issues with accessing the cellular data. So Mr. Duantono appears to have been either wrong or lying in trying to explain to them why the cell phone tower data was a dead end for them. Because they're saying, if you have a bunch of info from 2, but not from the 3rd, how do you know this is the full universe of people? And how can you really sort of cross-reference? And therefore, we couldn't find the guy. Well, it was no problem for Dan Bongino. And also, we just got this testimony like 2 months ago from the subcommittee or to the subcommittee saying there was absolutely no corruption of the data as that man testified under oath. So what is going on here?
It's a great question. It'll be challenging for me to give you a serious answer with the My Little Pony theme song running through my head constantly since you played that commercial.
My Little Pony.
It's a great ad. It's a great ad.
So far, I have put Kamala Harris's bust and the My Little Pony theme song in your head, and this is a problem for more than just you, Stu. I'm sure many of our listeners feel the same.
I think that's true. It's a fascinating story because the length of time it took for us to get to anything, right? There was so many bits and pieces of information that kept popping up about the pipe bomber, and we just never really got to anything. And it seems shocking because you'd think, with their desire to blame someone who supposedly liked Donald Trump for really anything, you think that would have been a target if that was real. Certainly doesn't seem like the information we have about this particular individual aligns with someone who would support Donald Trump, which is something I guess he said in an interview at some point, or at least he said that he thought the election was stolen, allegedly. We'll see if that proves to be true. But they presented.
But then his grandmother came out and said he is not a Trump supporter. He's not political at all.
Yeah. So, who knows? Could just be a crazy person, could be a conspiracy theorist, could be something else.
Well, it's like Thomas Crooks. Thomas Crooks was hard left. He was hard right before he went hard left. He was Googling where Joe Biden was in the days leading up to the Trump assassination attempt. Then obviously he settled in on Trump. Like, it is very possible that these disturbed, disaffected, tricked out young men are not really political, that they have just violence on their mind. It is also possible they get used by somebody who corrupts their feeble minds. That's something a lot of people have been asking, especially about Thomas Crooks. I don't know about this guy. But anyway, it is possible that this wasn't political, even though the targeted entities were the RNC and the DNC. Yeah,
no, very true. And I think when you look at how all of this played out, you have a guy doing, multiple failed investigations and being aligned with a bunch of big embarrassments, but politically targeted ones, right? Things that would end up, generally speaking, favoring the Democrats and the Biden administration at the time. And, it's fascinating how these people who do these things that wind up being complete disasters always seem to fail up. He walks out of all of this and he's got a gig at KPMG, right? That. It's a very strange development. You'd think this is a person who'd be like, hey, is there, Subway, do you have a gig available? It seems like that's the profile we've seen from someone like that. And honestly, there's been so many theories on this and so much speculation and a lot of it ending up in conspiracies and all of that. And it's kind of understandable because of all the really strange things that have happened. When government officials are telling us the data was corrupted, a new administration gets in and they are almost instantly able to get a hold of this data and explain to us.
The data's fine.
Yeah, it's fine. It's been fine the whole time. I mean, when you hear the data is corrupted, it's like, okay, well, we just got to give up. There's nothing we can do here. He's wearing a mask. He's fully clothed. He's got his face is covered. There's no way we're going to figure this out without cell phone data. And then, at the end of the day, we just have it, right? There were cameras in the area that were pointed towards places that could have.
That's another thing.
Yeah.
So that's another thing Miranda's pointing out, that all images and videos released by the FBI were low res and choppy.
Yeah.
This is before. She points out Mike Benz, a former State Department official during Trump's first term, and an executive director of the Foundation for Freedom Online, also claims a blur bar or pixelation effect has been laid over the suspect's eyes in the footage that shows him looking directly at the camera while sitting on a bench outside of the DNC building. Judging by the video, it might also be goggles, but either way, nobody recognized the suspect, perhaps by design. But now this FBI takes over, and before we know it, they've got, better pictures of him, higher res. And she also points out that by the end of February 2021, the Bureau had begun actively diverting resources away from the pipe bomb investigation. It's, they did have other priorities under Joe Biden. They were tracking grannies at abortion clinics. They were tracking parents at COVID meetings who literally just went over their allotted time. Not making that up. Merrick Garland testified before Congress on what led them to consider labeling parents domestic terrorists, pursuant to that letter that went to Joe Biden. And one of the items was parents going over their time at the microphone at school board meetings. That's the insanity that the DOJ and the FBI were looking into, instead of trying to find this guy who, by the way, Kash Patel and the FBI said had other bomb parts still sitting in his room, presumably purchased after the J6 date. So God knows what he was planning. It's like, perhaps we should have been focused on him instead of the parent who went over her allotted time.
Yeah, and that is, and to add on to that unseemly pile of priorities, they were also taking the cell phone information of sitting U.S. senators and looking at what they were doing. And also running a multi-year campaign to fool the American people into believing their president had some cognitive abilities that he clearly did not have. This is it's his. I really think over time this will become a situation where we really understand historically how significant a lot of this stuff was. I mean, we're talking about the American people without a president basically for multiple years, at least making the decisions on a day-to-day basis. Really big things like this. You mentioned the pro-life centers. Some of those cases are fascinating. I mean, these situations where local police didn't see it as enough of a priority. Local police were like, we saw the details of this investigation. We're not going to charge this individual. And then mysteriously, weeks later, the federal government gets involved in a minor case with no charges in a locality where no one was injured. There's a little bit of a scuffle, a little bit of an argument, but that's really it. And then the feds start coming in and charging individuals for crimes of like blocking abortion clinics. And how do they even know about a case like that, let alone want to prosecute it? All the things that the Democrats say about Trump, they say he's targeting their enemies. They say he's out of control. All he wants is power. He wants to, go blow through the Department of Justice, and all the things they say about him are all very familiar to them because they were doing them all themselves for 4 years. And that has to be exposed. It really is. If we don't get to the bottom of that and come up with some sense of consequence for the people who were involved in it, this stuff's just going to keep happening.
I feel like we should have a congressional hearing on this, and maybe this committee that Miranda references is going to look into it, the subcommittee. But I want to know who gave the stand down order. If one was given, or was it just a generic hey, we're all moving on, hey, here's 20 other things for you to focus on, so you're not going to look at. But it is weird that they were making progress and getting somewhere on the investigation, and then suddenly they had no interest in it. Look, I only know two things. We have to stand for the people. All right, that's number one. I know that. And I know this, Stu, as we go to break. I know this. Watch.
My little pony, my little pony, comb and brush her hair. My little pony, tie a ribbon to show how much I care. My little pony, I take her wherever.
Yeah, there you go. It's for you to marinate on until we come back, which we will do in just a couple of minutes. Be right back with Stu. I've been talking a lot about Riverbend Ranch because I love their steaks. This holiday season, express your love with a very special gift of premium steaks from Riverbend Ranch. They have spectacular beef bundles that are wonderful gifts to friends and family. Their prime rib roast and holiday bundles are only available while supplies last, and they are going fast. For the last 35 years, Riverbend Ranch has been creating an elite Angus herd by using ultrasound technology to identify genetically superior cattle with a focus on flavor and tenderness. All Riverbend Ranch cattle are born and raised in the USA. They never use growth hormones or antibiotics, and the beef is processed right at the ranch in their award-winning USDA-inspected processing facility. Avoid the costly middlemen because the beef is sent directly from Riverbend Ranch to your home. This is not your average Black Angus beef. Order from riverbendranch.com. Use the promo code Megyn for $20 off your first order, and let me know what you think. That's riverbendranch.com, promo code Megyn. Stu, our friend Piers Morgan sat down with Nick Fuentes and did the interview that everybody wanted Tucker to do with Nick Fuentes. And I'm sure this is going to make everyone super happy and put to bed the controversy of Nick Fuentes and his appeal. Oh, wait. No, it won't at all. But here's a little taste of how it went. Take a listen here to SOT 12.
Just to clear up one of the many theories about you, I've no idea what the answer is and you haven't got to answer. But are you actually attracted to women?
I am attracted to women.
You're not gay?
No. But I will say that women are very difficult to be around.
Okay.
So there's that.
And do you think they should have the right to vote?
I do not. No, absolutely not.
They should stay at home?
Well, yeah, absolutely.
So basically, you're just a misogynist old dinosaur, aren't you? For a young guy.
Yeah.
I mean, I know I'm the boomer. I know I'm the boomer here, but actually, you're a 27-year-old dinosaur, aren't you? Aren't you, Nick Fuentes? All women.
I am.
All women are annoying. All women grow old. They all get fat. Says the guy. Have you ever had sex?
No, absolutely not.
Wow. Says the guy who's never got laid.
Okay. It's interesting, you know, Piers did his thing, but honestly, I don't understand the value that comes out of any of it. I got to be honest. I love Piers, but like, I don't get it. I don't think this is worth doing. I just think if you don't like Nick Fuentes, you should ignore Nick Fuentes. I don't think people hearing, and here's another soundbite. This is him on Hitler. It's not going to surprise anybody. Here he is.
You think Hitler was very fucking cool?
Yes, I do.
And
I'm tired of pretending he's not.
Well,
to be honest,
this is the problem. You see, it's a bit like when you just say I'm a racist. You're a racist. You think Hitler's cool, but you're not anti-Semitic. If you're a Jewish person watching this, what are they thinking?
Just one more, Stu. Here he is. One of the things that was airable, if you go to his show, the stuff's not airable, his thoughts on blacks.
This is where you talk about Jews, women, and blacks. Let's just take a listen.
They're always coming up with, no, it's not the Jews. No, it's not women. No, it's not blacks. It's actually really complicated. No, it fucking isn't at all. Jews are running society. Women need to shut the fuck up. Blacks need to be imprisoned for the most part. And we would live in paradise. It's that simple.
Okay. Would you like to clarify what you meant there?
That's all true. That's 100% true. Everything I said in that clip is true.
Including that blacks need to be imprisoned for the most part.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. So I don't what are your thoughts? Because I love Piers, and he does a lot of controversial interviews, and it's kind of part of his brand. But for me personally, I see absolutely no redeeming value in doing this.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, can we go back to the bronies? Can we talk about that instead? Is that possible?
That was the cleaner,
right?
Nicer portion of our time today.
Yeah. Look, I obviously his views are awful, and I think it's quite obvious to everyone who's awful that it's awful. Piers can program his own show, just like Tucker can program his own show, and you can program your own show, and I can program mine. Some people think this is interesting. I think there's a lot of views on this where it's like, oh God, his views are abhorrent. I fully agree with that. People question about whether his views are somewhat, I don't know, manufactured. Is it partially a shtick? I don't know. I don't know the guy, and I don't want to know the guy. At the end of the day, though, there's a different section that I also fall into, which is I just don't find him all that interesting. I don't get a lot out of it. I don't need or really care about any of his views. And when you're leading with Hitler was cool and I like Stalin, I kind of made up my mind about the Holocaust a really long time ago. I don't feel the need to re-entertain it.
You're just trying to be subversive.
Yeah.
You're just trying to be subversive and attract attention by saying the most outrageous things. Yeah, it's not a criticism of Piers.
No.
It's a criticism of the people who are like, Tucker needed to do his interview with Nick Fuentes a certain way, to show people that side of him. And I just feel like if you spent 20 seconds just Googling the name, you will get all of those views. They will be the first thing that's there on you. I don't think there's a huge population of people who listen to Tucker's show who walked away with, that's a really interesting guy. I want to know more. People know that name. They know the name Nick Fuentes now because mostly the left, but also the right, have made him a boogeyman. And that whatever, they did that for whatever their reasons were, but now he's better known than ever. And he's been on a bunch of other podcasts. This is why, I've never asked him for an interview, and I have no desire to interview him. I can cross-examine with the best of them.
Oh, yeah.
Trust me. If I want to do a contentious interview, I know how. This just seems pointless to me. To me, it's like you want to cross-examine reasonable people who are taking an outrageous position on something, someone who's gettable, someone who you might actually find fundamentally decent, but who's just gone off the deep end on something. That's somebody I would talk to, but I don't really want to talk to crazy. And I don't really want to talk to, I'm just subversive looking for attention. It's not that interesting to me.
Yeah, I mean, you interviewed Vladimir Putin, right? This is a person that has really awful views, and I think
Anthony Weiner.
Yeah, oh God, even worse. But yeah, there is value in interviewing someone who, particularly someone who has power, and I'm not saying that there's no case for an investigation on what the phenomenon is, if there is one. I mean, there's some belief that it's a little bit overstated, which I tend to agree with. I run in conservative circles, never met anybody in my entire life who brought up anything about Nick Fuentes, that they watched the show. Right. I mean, they probably exist. I don't know, but I've never met anyone.
He's become like a David Duke figure. Yeah. Where the name, generally what he stands for. It's not really something you're going to spend any time with.
Yeah, and I don't know, Megyn, is it okay? Because I see a lot of people posting online about the back and forth between what you're supposed to do in these moments, right? You're supposed to take him on at full strength and make sure everything he says is denounced, and everyone who talks to him, you denounce them. And I can understand that argument. I really do think his views are absolutely terrible. And I see another side of people who are fighting back and saying, no, it's a really important phenomenon. We need to talk about him constantly. And I guess there's some validity to that view as well. At the end of the day, though, do I have to be interested in everything? I have a life I live, right? I've got kids at basketball games and baseball games and gymnastics meets. Do I really have to come here and try to make a case of that the Holocaust happened? What year is this? It's
so true.
It's just flatly uninteresting to me at the scale we're at. It seems like you feel the same way with it. I've heard about it. I'm done with it.
That's how I am about conspiracy theories too. I could spend all day. If you want to take on somebody's favorite conspiracy theories, you could devote your whole show to it every day, debunking each latest iteration of it. Who wants to spend their time like that? It's utterly pointless, by the way, because you can't talk people who believe conspiracy theories out of their beliefs of those conspiracy theories. They don't respond. The people, like the truly conspiratorial thinkers, do not respond to hard facts that disprove their theories at all. They just find a way around them. They find a new way to justify them. I mean, you truly would be better just banging your head against your desk. So it's like, why not? Why do it? Why not spend the time delivering what you know is real news that actually might affect people's lives, and let those chips on these other things fall where they may? It's America. You can be crazy. It's America. You can be racist. It's America. You can be subversive. And what we can do is use the law when someone like a Nick Fuentes gets into, let's say, a hiring position and those views are unleashed on a staff position or a staffer, somebody working for him. Now, that's illegal, but it's not illegal to have his views. And it's not illegal for him to be popular, which he is amongst a certain contingent. And they know. That contingent knows better than you and I know what he actually stands for, because he makes zero attempt to hide it, especially on his show. So even if you go over to Tucker's show or whoever's show and you manage to like act like you're kind of a normie, as soon as somebody tunes into your actual show and your Nick Fuentes, they're going to hear exactly what you stand for. He is not shy on his show. He says it all. It's shocking. So anyway, I just thought it was sort of an interesting social situation where somebody did the thing they wanted of Tucker. I don't think it'll change anything.
Yeah, I tend to think the same way, and I understand some people feel like really passionate to call out every one of these things. I'm glad there is the other side, that if people are searching, the very few that could be convinced, I'm glad that those views are out there. But like I tend to I was reading a piece by Coleman Hughes recently. I don't know if you talked about that.
Yes, I read it.
It was a great piece.
I haven't talked about it. Very good.
And he's fantastic. And I think he had a really good breakdown of this and kind of talked about Nick Fuentes. As he did another video about how Nick Fuentes has one opinion on his show, and then he comes to mainstream podcasts and he changes that. And that might have been what Pierce was getting at there, saying, okay, you're on a mainstream podcast. Now, don't soften it. Let me ask you these direct questions, which maybe there's some value to. But, I think about Coleman Hughes. He wrote a book. His most recent book was about race, and it was excellent. Like, it is, I believe, an important book, a book that like America should know about and should understand how to really dissect a topic like that. That's difficult. If you don't know Coleman, he's an African-American guy but he's talking about race in a really sensible way and solving, I think, a lot of these problems and making real impact on it. If anyone read it, right? Like Nick Fuentes' views on these things are getting a hell of a lot more publicity from the left, the right, the middle, and everything else than this incredible book that came out like last year that should have been much more in the spotlight and much more part of a serious conversation. Like I'm not saying that someone who's literally threatening to imprison people based on their race is not a threat. You should take those people seriously at some level. But he's also a goofball, and I don't know what to believe about it. If we lose the battle on whether the Holocaust happened, we're lost as a society already, and I don't know if there's anything to repair. Maybe instead of spending another 25,000 segments on Nick Fuentes, go back and read the Coleman Hughes book. That's something really serious and it did some real work on race, and I'd encourage people to pick it up and read it.
Yeah, it's just like, I know Jews feel targeted by Nick Fuentes, not for nothing, but women are just as targeted in his rants. Yeah. So are blacks. I'm sorry, but this is America, and people are allowed to say terrible things about us. That's life. It's fine. They think he's been mainstreamed. I don't think he's been mainstreamed. I think Tucker took a look to see why he was growing in popularity. But, now there's a question about whether he even is. I saw an interesting report on X the other day suggesting a lot of his support has been somewhat overstated. It was astroturfed, and he's been like pumped up by people who want to undermine the United States, a lot of foreign actors making him seem more important than he really is, which makes perfect sense to me. Okay, let's keep going, because there's one other thing I've got to get to with you before you go. Okay. Everyone takes maybe a few extra days off, I think, if they can, in the summer, because it's nice weather. And for a lot of us who are parents, our kids are off and you want to see them. And if you can see them like on a beach by an ocean, so much the better. So I don't begrudge anybody who wants to take their vacation in the summer. I do, however, begrudge taking off more than half of your working days over the course of the summer when you are paid reportedly somewhere near $30 million, like Joe Scarborough and Mika Brzezinski. The Free Beacon did this amazing report on how over the summer, it's actually from June, July, August, September, and October, so into the fall as well. Morning Joe, that show was without at least one of its married, they live together, they're married, co-hosts for literally dozens of episodes. So how does the one, like, you don't go on vacation by yourself without your spouse, not if you're normal. So what's like the one asleep in bed while the other one gets up early and actually fulfills their contractual obligations? So between May 27th and November 15th, Scarborough and Brzezinski appeared together on just 70 of 124 episodes, a Washington Free Beacon review found. So yeah, so 56% of their shows had both of them on cam, and 44% of their shows did not. For 44% of their shows, they were missing one of the hosts. Scarborough missed 29 shows. That's 6 weeks. 6 weeks. Brzezinski missed 41. 1 out of every 3 workdays. 8 weeks she had off during that brief time frame. 8. In July, she was out for 2 consecutive weeks, appearing on only about half of that month's episodes. Neither was present for 16 shows, leaving Morning Joe's C-list, Jonathan Lemire, Willie Geist, and Caddy K, to fill in. Caddy K opened the one show by saying, "I'm Caddy K, in for Joe, Mika, and Willie. Everyone's off except me. I'm so sorry." Their
sad.
Chronic absenteeism, reports the Beacon, has reportedly frustrated long-suffering staffers, leading to chaos and a workplace in meltdown because the staff doesn't get all that time off, Stu. Just the 2 big stars do. Someone saying there's no leadership, according to a senior producer. Every day is a scramble. Who's hosting? What's the tone? Who's running the ship? No one knows. They have special deals, endless vacation time. Then they suddenly turned it around, and starting November 12th, just days before MSNBC was forced to switch its name to MS Now, they got back to work and have since had a perfect attendance streak, 3 whole weeks showing up for their jobs, the longest since Memorial Day. In fact, their record before November 12th was a whopping 7 days in a row. That happened in July. Their compensation package is said to be in the same league as Rachel Maddow's, which is where I got the $30 million from. She makes between 25 and 30. This is crazy. This is elitist snobbery of people who are living in a totally different manner from the people who watch them. They're down in Jupiter, Florida, Stu, at some mansion. I'm sure it's on the water, not having anything to do with the communities or the people that they are supposed to be reporting to. And all of this perfectly explains why they cover the news the way they do, why they sound the way they do, and why they just generally have an air of, I'm better than you.
Yeah, I mean, that's fascinating. There's got to be a story behind this, right? Like, I guess there's an outlier possibility. There's something we don't know about. It could be a health issue, or who knows. I mean, you could set that aside.
For both of them?
It would be odd. Maybe they're passing it back and forth to each other. That would be really tragic. As one gets better, the other gets sick. Who knows? All I know is a couple things. Number one, Joe Scarborough years and years and years ago had a radio show, and you might not remember that because no one listened to it at all. But when the show was at one point was taken off the air, he, instead of saying what I believe to be the truth, that his ratings were so terrible that he was just getting canceled, he came up with this elaborate excuse that the show, which I believe was 2 hours long, needed to go into a hiatus in order to figure out how to add a third hour. Now, I'm not, I don't know. I'm not a mathematician. I might not have all the details. What it seems to me to do is you just stay for the next hour and keep talking. Like that was my solution for them. You'll be shocked to hear the hiatus never ended. They never came back with a third hour, which, he has a history of, making things up and, excusing bizarre circumstances behind the scene.
The best Joe Biden ever.
Yeah, right. Oh, God. Not to mention completely misleading the country in the most egregious way possible. I think he was the worst one, honestly, out of everybody in the media.
And that's saying something.
Yeah, really is saying something. The other thing is, I grew up a kid listening to New York radio, and Mike and the Mad Dog were a big sports show. And they would do the show together all the time. And for a long time, there would just be Phil and other hosts when they would be off. And then it started developing into a period where one would host while the other one went on vacation. And then they would come back on the other side, and it would be a reverse. And then they'd all have like multiple weeks off, and it'd be months in between times I heard them together. Later on, we kind of found out they were really at odds. They couldn't stand each other, right? Like they were at the period where they didn't want to talk to each other. They didn't want to see each other. Now, when you're talking about a married couple, everybody might have, there are problems that do get into marriages. And again, total speculation here, but you wonder if there's an issue of tension there. It's tough to do a show together in front of the country and be able to hide that. So, maybe that's unfair marital counseling advice from Stu Burkier, but it is an interesting, you wonder because of their relationship, which again, they hid for a long time. It just doesn't seem like there's just even a cell in his body that is honest. And, maybe that plays in here.
It's so lazy. It's like hard work is what gets you ahead in life. And even when you're at the top, hard work is what is important to keep you there. And I think also to keep you the respect of your audience. Like I take 2 weeks off in December, right? The Christmas, New Year's break. And the first week of those, I prepare taped new content for my audience because I respect them and I want them to have something to look forward to, something new, especially at a time when there's very little new coming in the podcast world. And in June, the same. We take a family trip every June, all 5 of us, and we do the same. We do 1 week of new content. So literally, should be only 2 weeks of true vacation time where the audience is not getting new content. They're getting like a best of. That's not because I loved taping double shows in a month like December where I'm just as busy as everybody else. It's out of respect for the audience and the relationship that we've built, and I just think this is so disrespectful. I cannot imagine in a summer taking off 8 weeks. And it also underscores how unimportant they are to their audience too.
Yes.
I would get complaints from my audience. I do believe if I took 8 weeks off in the summer, I think they start writing in like, what happened to you? And they'd start looking for other broadcasters. It's like, can't go 8 weeks without getting your news from someone you trust. These two don't give a shit. They don't. And apparently neither does their audience.
Yeah. That's fascinating because I hadn't heard from anybody that they were taking time off until this Free Vegan Beast came out. But you made the point there, which I think is interesting, and I will quibble with a little bit, which is that hard work, is what gets you ahead and keeps you on top. What in Joe Scarborough's life shows any evidence of that? He has risen to these levels where he's making $30 million.
For a leftist
yeah, it is.
TV presenter.
They live in a different world, and it goes back to several of the people we've talked about today. Jasmine Crockett, Kamala Harris, all of these people learned the same lesson, which is if you believe the right things and you get in front of the camera enough, great things happen, and you're never held to account for any of your actions. Your audience doesn't really care. It's repetitive on the left, and you keep
Karine Jean-Pierre.
Karine Jean-Pierre is maybe the ultimate example. The investigator we talked about earlier. All these people seem to fail up, and Scarborough has held this gig for a long time with no audience. An audience that's a tiny None. Fraction of what you have. And that's because the people who listen to your show care about what you say and are here to understand the world, where the MSNBC audience is, you watch that show. Half of the interviews, because we have it on one of our monitors here, and half of the interviews are with like kind of no-name actors in movies that are coming out from major studios that aren't really getting any attention. And it's like, why would they put that on the air? Well, because they're doing the show for like 14 Democrats in Hollywood and New York City. Like, they're not doing the show for an audience. It's just a placeholder so they can charge massive ad rates. It's good work if you can get it, but I would find it pretty unfulfilling as an actual life.
Yeah, those are all great points. And you do raise an interesting thought about what's the state of the marriage? Because like if you're both home, can you imagine? Like you get out there and do it this morning. I don't want to see those people. I don't want to service my audience. You do it. And then the next day, no, you do it. I was out there talking to them. This audience is a pain in my ass is basically what they're saying. This job is a pain in my ass. Well, then give it up. Move on. Do something else. Go work. Go be on your boat in Mar-a-Lago or wherever you are, Jupiter, Florida, all the time, right? You're not contributing meaningfully to the national dialogue anymore. Maybe it's time to hang up your spurs. Stu, that's a reference you get as a Texas man. We end where we began. And I love that you might have Jasmine Crockett, as you so exotically refer to her, to kick around for quite some time now, my friend. Let's encourage her. Let's encourage Kamala. And I think all of our lives will get better up until the day of the election when they're gone.
Jasmine Crockett for Senate, but only in the primary, and then a hopeful destructive loss. Thanks, Megyn.
Great to see you. Talk to you soon. Okay, up next, Zachary Levi is here with a new project and more. I have a serious question for you. What's the smart way to protect your home and family when it comes to break-ins? Well, it's not about how you respond in the aftermath, though that's what most security companies would have you believe. No, the smart way to handle it is to prevent a break-in before it even happens. Simply Safe flips the script, stopping criminals before they even enter. AI cameras detect threats early and alert live agents, who in turn warn intruders. If they don't leave, police are dispatched. If I needed a security system, Simply Safe would be my go-to. Setup is a breeze, and the app lets you check cameras anytime. Plus, there's a 60-day money-back guarantee and no long-term contracts. Simply Safe has been named Best Home Security by U.S. News & World Report for 5 years running. This month only, take 50% off any new system. This is one of the best prices you will ever see for Simply Safe. Go to SimplySafe, SIMPLI, safe.com/Megyn. Again, that's simplysafe.com/Megyn, and lock in your discount. There's no safe like Simply Safe. Joining me now, actor and producer Zachary Levi. He's joined the show a few times, first as a supporter of RFKJ and then as a supporter of then candidate Donald Trump. Now, Levi's new film, Not Without Hope, hits theaters this Friday. Oh my gosh, I got a sneak preview of it last night. It was gripping. The film tells the tragic true story of 4 best friends who went out for a fishing trip only to be lost at sea in the middle of a storm after their boat capsizes. Here's some from the trailer.
We're gonna be all right. We're 4 big, strong men.
Well, you can't bench press the ocean.
Look at this haul. This weather is not good. We gotta wrap it up.
Nicholas, it's Mom. I know you went out fishing this morning. This big storm's supposed to hit. Love you, hon. Bye.
We have some men out on the open water.
4 men in the middle of a giant storm.
What's happening to him? Hypothermia.
I'm gonna do everything in my power to bring him home safe and sound.
Right now, let's go!
No visual. Weather getting worse.
We are not done yet.
Hang on!
I get strong!
You get strong! We get strong!
Oh, Not Without Hope, again, is the name of the movie. Highly recommend. Zach, welcome back to the show.
Hi, thanks. Good to see you. How's my favorite talk show host?
Oh, thank you so much. I'm doing great. I loved the movie. It reminded me of The Perfect Storm. It was about friendship. It was about perseverance. It was about hope, but also like the element that scares us all, Mother Nature, the ocean, that comment about you can't bench press the ocean, and just how small we all feel when we encounter one of nature's angry days and how powerless we are against the elements. My gosh, what was it like shooting this thing? Because you are in the water like the whole time.
Yeah, basically the whole time. So we shot it in Malta in a massive water tank that was filled with actual ocean water. So it was freezing. It was freezing water. We were in that tank, the 4 of us, for about 3.5 weeks, mostly shooting at night. And listen, no matter what we encountered, it was nothing compared to what these actual men went through and the loss of their lives. We were surrounded by emergency divers and medical teams and all that kind of stuff, but it was grueling. It was the most intense physical experience I've ever had as an actor. It was part of the reason I signed up for it. I wanted to be challenged in a different way. But I remember reading about this, or seeing this story on the news in passing, that these four guys had gone on this fishing trip. Two of them were NFL football players. That was kind of what made it so notable. And I remember just feeling so gutted for them and for their family. Like, what a tragic way to die. And then the script came across my desk, and I, read it and learned about all of the harrowing details of it. And I just thought, man, I feel like this is a story that's worth telling. I mean, it's harrowing, it's frustrating, it's angering almost that, so much of this came down to an anchor, getting their anchor caught ultimately. And that ultimately them trying to dislodge that, capsize the boat, they get caught in this storm. And Nick Schuyler, the character that I played, he was the lucky one. He survived, and he was able to write the book. And then now this is the story that's based on that book. And I believe that we have, not just honored Nick, but honored the lives of these other gentlemen, Marquise and Corey and Will, who passed. It's not a feel-good movie. I mean, it is a really pulse-pounding, harrowing adventure. But I think at the end, it still leaves the audience with the concept of holding on to that last shred of hope, no matter what the odds are, to hold on to that hope. It's imperative. It's imperative in our lives.
Well, I also think, they say that the stories that do the best in books, movies, what have you, are about friendship. And this is about friendship. Yes, it's not that hopeful in the end, although not everyone dies. But it is a story about friendship, and these four guys who are really close and do everything possible to sort of buoy each other up during this very harrowing experience. And then the sole survivor who takes all those memories with him and winds up writing a book and going on a book tour. Here, his name is Nick Schuyler. That's who you played. He gave, the actual guy, an interview to Larry King back in 2010 talking about like the hypothermia, which the movie does a very good job of documenting as it set in on these very big NFL players. Here's a little bit of that in SOT 51.
Will was able to retrieve a few life jackets and a throw cushion. And
so why didn't that save people?
It had nothing to do with the drowning. It was the hypothermia. When hypothermia sets in, it does things to the mind and the body that neither anyone can control. So things that happened out there to the guys that they didn't realize that was even happening.
When you say not realize, they were disoriented?
Correct. Yes.
And you weren't?
Not till later. Not till later when I was by myself.
What was it like to see three of your friends go under?
It was probably the worst thing I could ever imagine for anyone else. It's really indescribable, and words don't do justice, but, particularly how those guys, went, and to sit there absolutely helpless and defenseless and not being able to help them or get help or whatever. It was definitely heart-wrenching, and looking into their eyes once again, them not even knowing what's going on, was definitely difficult.
All such young, strong guys. Did you get to meet him, Zach?
Yes, I did. Nick was the lucky one in this ordeal, and I was the lucky one in that I had a living counterpart that I could, I was able to have a few phone calls with him before we filmed and pick his brain and heart about what was going on in him during that time. As you can imagine, it was, and as you see in this interview, it was an incredibly traumatic experience. And with trauma, there's a lot of memories that are repressed. So it was difficult for him to recall a lot of all of those feelings or thoughts that he was having. But I was able to glean what I could from that. And then he was also able to come, he and his wife, Paula, who was his girlfriend at the time and is in the film, they came and visited us in Malta. And so we were able to, kind of visit with them while they were out there, which was a very surreal experience for everyone. I mean, it was very surreal for them as they're watching these scenes being reenacted with his friends dying again. And it was surreal for us to be doing that in front of them. But I think that there's something, I don't know, there's, when you're doing a movie like this, where you are honoring real people, that is the first and foremost, that is the audience that you are trying to please, to honor, to make sure that you're telling that story as authentically as possible. And I believe that we did that. And I hope that we've honored Corey and Marquise and Will and their families in this. I know that Marshall and Quentin and Terrence gave everything that they could. They did not have their real life counterpart to be able to, interface with, to dig into those characters. But I know they did everything they could to try to bring them authentically to the screen. And we all bonded greatly while we were in that tank. I mean, you can't help but bond because we really were freezing, and we were huddling up during the take, after the take, between takes, just trying to stay warm. And again, I'm not trying to paint this as if we were in the same peril that those gentlemen were in, but but it was a gnarly experience. I mean, that's
grueling for you as an actor. I remember Kate Winslet talked about that after she shot Titanic, about how they went through a lot of that themselves, like near hypothermia from the scenes she had to do immersed in water for hours and hours on end. So it can be somewhat dangerous and unpleasant for the actors. Of course, that's not to compare it to the actual.
Yeah.
You mentioned that scene where the boat gets caught, where the anchor gets caught. And honestly, that's what reminded me of The Perfect Storm, that and some of the waves that came after when the guys were floating. That too doesn't have exactly like a hopeful, like a positive ending, but it's one of those movies that stays with you, based on the book written by Sebastian Junger. We have a little bit of that scene cut. You need to see the whole movie, which is called Not Without Hope. It hits theaters this Friday. Go see it. But here's a little bit of that moment in just a gripping scene. I think it's SOT 49. That is like, you're all underwater. What'd you have to do for that? Because that looks terrifyingly realistic.
Well, we all had wonderful stunt doubles. So that particular stunt right there of men flying off of the boat,
were they Navy SEALs?
No. Listen, my stunt double Dave Castillo is an incredible human being. He's like a brother from another mother, and he's just an incredible athlete, as most stunt men and women are. I mean, they are trained to do these types of things. So that specific stunt was our stunt doubles, but we did a lot of underwater, in water stunts ourselves as the cast. Lots of wave machines, wind machines, rain machines, water cannons, all kinds of stuff. But just quickly, this was, when I read the script, because this happens, pretty much in the beginning of the movie, the anchor getting caught and what leads to, ultimately the demise of three of these gentlemen. Marquise, a week prior, had been on a fishing trip, and he got his anchor caught in the same place, and he had to cut the anchor, and it was a $500 anchor. And he didn't want to cut another anchor. And so that's what ultimately led to this. And it's as I'm reading the script, I'm so angry. I'm angry for all of them. I'm angry for their families. I'm angry that this simple little thing could have been the difference between them actually getting home and being alive today, right? And it's one of the things that making the movie, and even afterwards, as I've kind of contemplated it, I want audiences to, be moved by this movie, obviously, and I think that they will be. And I think that you can take hope away from this, to hold on to hope, if nothing else, like hold on to that last shred of hope, and believe that there are people out there that are praying and hoping for you, as their families were. But also, kind of philosophically, one of the things that I hope audiences take from this, and certainly what I take from this, is cut the anchor. Like, whatever is in your life, whatever petty little thing or large thing or whatever it is that is pulling you down, that is weighing you down, that is drowning you. And we all have them. And we got to cut these anchors. We cannot, miss the forest for the trees. And that's what this was, a kind of a perfect example of that. So anyway, it is.
That's so good.
Yeah.
You're totally right. Well, thankfully, it will end well for you, Zachary Levi, because this is going to be a big hit. It's called Not Without Hope. Go check it out in your theater this Friday. You might not be able to check out movies in theaters for too long if this Warner Brother deal goes through to Netflix. Do you have any thoughts on that? So Netflix struck a deal to buy Warner Brothers. Everybody's worried because Warner Brothers is one of the few remaining movie studios that puts out real movies in real theaters as opposed to direct to streaming on an app on your home TV. And then at the last minute, you've got Paramount Skydance swooping in saying, we're going to try a hostile takeover where we wrest this deal away from Netflix and we'll let Warner Brothers still be Warner Brothers, putting real movies out at least 30 per year into theaters. So some in the acting community are more for the hostile takeover bid than the Netflix bid, which has been agreed to, but is now in danger. Do you have any thoughts on it?
Oh, I've got so many thoughts about it. Listen, I think that's I think that we're already in really dire straits, right? We have such a consolidation of power. It used to be 50 different companies that represented the entertainment industry, and now it's basically down to 5, 6, something like that. And this is why we have antitrust and monopoly laws on the books, is to ensure that we don't have such a consolidation down to just a few powerful entities that are controlling everything within any individual industry. I don't love the idea that anybody's going to buy Warner Brothers, to be perfectly honest. Warner Brothers has been a home for me for many years. I did Chuck there for 5 years. Shazam, both films, these are Warner Brothers DC films. I love Warner Brothers as a studio. I have a lot of friends there, but they've also been going through lots and lots and lots of issues over these last 10 years. First with the AT&T deal that was not good for them. Then with the Discovery deal that, ultimately with all of these consolidations, lots and lots of people are losing their jobs. More and more, I think great art is not being made. I think with the Netflix deal, it's particularly troubling because they don't really care about theatrical release. And I think that theatrical release is imperative for us. I think that not just from a financial modeling or, allowing filmmakers and artists to be able to, make a living making movies that go into theaters that people pay for tickets. But when we don't go to theaters, this is something that's, I think, driving us apart. Part of the theatrical experience for decades is that you go to a theater and you are surrounded by strangers, people that don't look like you, don't agree with you. It might come from different political or religious backgrounds, whatever it is. But you know that you can go watch the same movie and laugh in the same moments and cry in the same moments. And what that does is it reminds you, either consciously or subconsciously, that we're not all that different. And so when we don't go to the theater as people and we don't enjoy these things as a collective, we lose even more of that connective tissue. And I know that Netflix is, Sid Sarandos has said as much. He said, I think we can do film windows that, theatrical windows that are like a week or 2 weeks. And that's just simply not enough time, I think, to give a great film its opportunity in the theater. Some films don't even pick up their inertia until a few weeks in the theaters, when word of mouth gets out and people start going to the theater and experiencing that as it was meant to be exhibited. And so I really don't love that. I don't love the consolidation. I don't love that with streaming, by the way. This is another issue that we have, and something that I'm actively trying to solve for. We don't own anything anymore. We're all just leasing everything. And I don't think that's right. I don't love the idea that as an artist, I could go make something and there's no physical copy of it anymore because nobody's making DVDs or anything like that. And so it only lives on a streamer. And then the streamer decides, well, we don't want to put this on the service anymore. And it's gone. It's literally gone. I can't point my friends or family or fans to go watch what I made. It doesn't exist anymore because it's not on the streaming service anymore. And I don't think that's good either. I think we as the audience, we as the people, more and more of us are waking up to the fact that we are just renting everything. It's just subscription after subscription. I mean, by the way, I said this 15 years ago when everyone was cutting the cord on cable. I told all my friends, I said, do you realize what's going to happen? We're going to cut this $100 cord, this bill that's got all these channels and certainly some that we don't care about and we don't watch. And that's, why are we paying for all this? But then what's going to happen is we're going to have 10 subscriptions over a whole bunch of different services, and we're going to pay twice as much. And that's exactly what's happened. And now there is no home video. There's no ownership anymore. We've got to figure out a way to get back to that. And I don't know that any of these things are getting us there. So it's troubling all the way around.
I cannot imagine going to see, some of the movies we grew up on, like Indiana Jones, just on the small screen, not being able to watch that on the big screen, or another one, Schindler's List.
Yeah.
Remember? I mean, everybody remembers seeing that movie for the first time. Unfortunately, in my case, I went with my stepsister who had just gotten off her shift as a nurse and went into Schindler's List with a salad from McDonald's in one of those plastic containers.
Ooh.
It's like every time she opened it, it was so loud. And then the salad eating was loud. I was like slowly moving my way away from her, like 4 seats down. Like, oh my God.
That's
so
an episode of Seinfeld. I mean, that's basically what you're trying to say.
Totally. But anyway, the point is, like, most of these movies will be way more impactful on the big screen. And yes, there is something to it. You think of like the great horror films that we've all seen, like Friday the 13th, seeing that in the theater with the audience yelling at the same moments, or even you walk out of Terms of Endearment, everybody's got this tear-stained face.
Yeah.
Like, there is a shared community in experiencing it together. So I agree. I mean, I'm not really rooting for the Netflix deal. I have to be honest. They're big enough, and I'm not really a big fan of the people who run Netflix and own Netflix. So we'll see what happens. Okay, let's keep going. Let's talk politics for a minute. RFKJ, your guy, notwithstanding the fact that he's at least one of, if not the most maligned member of the Trump cabinet, he's probably tied with Hegseth, is the most popular. I've been saying this because he proved the most popular in a recent poll, but then we just got another poll once again says the same thing. RFKJ, the most popular. So are the people learning to ignore the media?
I hope so. I mean, I think that, unfortunately, we've been living in a culture where legacy media has been just an arm of propaganda for far too long, and I think it started, well, I don't know, there's a lot of things that we could pick at and all of that. But obviously, once people figured out that, death and fear and all of that sell, well, then they're just going to push more and more and more of that. And I do think that, unfortunately, we have massive just financial interest in this when legacy media is in large part financed by the pharmaceutical industries. They have a vested interest in making more money. And so they are going to do everything they can to make sure, lean on these news industries to, entities and outlets to malign somebody like Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who I know personally, and he is a wonderful human being. And he's not a perfect human being. None of the people in any of the political spectrum are perfect human beings. So first of all, we need to let that go, right? We're not trying to vote for or support people because they are perfect. We're trying to understand, are they actually trying to do the work to make this country healthier, better, bring us back into alignment, bring us back into understanding each other? And I believe that Bobby has been doing that from day one. I mean, clearly he's been doing it for a really long time because he was beloved in the Democratic Party. He was beloved by people who were more liberally leaning for a really long time. And then because he wouldn't toe these very ridiculous, woke is used now in so many different ways, but, kind of woke ways, then he couldn't be the Democratic nominee, and therefore they had to besmirch and smear him every chance they could. But listen, more and more data continues to come out about vaccines, about our food, about agriculture, about pesticides, and I know that he's doing everything that he can, everything within his power to fight for us, for the American people. And I hope that more and more people are willing to just look beyond the propaganda, because that's what it is. We have been propagandized on every side, right? I don't think that this is exclusively something that happens in legacy media on the left. I think that there is even legacy media on the right that chooses to use stories or factoids or data points that are, salacious and trying to
well, listen,
rile
I
us
can tell
up.
you this for a fact, having been in right-wing media and left-wing media, they are all slaves to Pfizer. They're all slaves to Pfizer. And once you realize how powerful the drug companies are, it explains a lot of the negativity you hear about Bobby Kennedy.
That's right.
Stand by. I got to take a quick break, but pick it up on the back end, Zach. Don't go anywhere.
Okay.
The holidays are here, which means family time, great food, lots of travel, and of course, a few too many germs. That is why I love All Family Pharmacy. They make it simple to stay healthy and prepared. Just go to allfamilypharmacy.com/Megyn, place your order online, and then a licensed physician will review it, provide a prescription if necessary, and once it is approved, your medication ships right to your door, fast and secure. Whether you are looking for ivermectin, antibiotics, or your everyday maintenance medications, they've got you covered. And right now you can save 10% with code MEGAN10 at checkout. So while you focus on family, good food, and everything that makes this season special, Let All Family Pharmacy handle the rest. Visit allfamilypharmacy.com/Megyn today. And remember to use code Megyn10 to stay healthy, happy, and ready for the holidays. Allfamilypharmacy.com/Megyn today. Code Megyn10 for 10% off at checkout. So, Zach, we were talking about RFKJ, and one of the things he did this week that he's taking flack for, but not from anyone reasonable, is they're trying to remove Hep B from the list of recommended day one baby vaccinations, saying if you want to get it done, you should, but we're only recommending it for mothers who are Hep B positive or for mothers who don't know and might be Hep B positive, because it's a sexually transmitted disease or something you get through IV drug use. And most babies do not need any of these vaccines until they become more, into the teenage years and potentially sexually active, or drugs and so on. Anyway, that doesn't happen for a newborn baby in virtually any case. So what do you make of it?
I think it's long overdue. I think that it's really, really tragic what's happened in this world in the medical industry, one that of all industries we would imagine, or we would assume, these people having taken Hippocratic oaths to do no harm, right, under any circumstances, to not deceive that might lead to harm, that money has become the only objective. It's just make money at any price, whether that's the cost of human life or our own health. The fact that Hep B vaccines have been forced on babies day one, freshly out of the womb, when mothers take a blood test, they know if a mother has Hep B or not. This was all predicated upon, by the way. There was the study that was done that, the advocates for the Hep B vaccine point to, and this data that says, there's this amount of mothers who, even after testing, still contracted Hep B. And so therefore, we just need to cover all of our bases to make sure that babies are given this vaccine. That study was done on prison inmates. That study was done with women who were essentially practicing things that would put themselves in harm's way, that would make them susceptible to getting Hep B, even after being tested for Hep B. That is where that data came from. That is not the normal. That is not the average. That is cherry picking a very small amount of data, then applying it to the general populace, and then saying, well, see, this is what happens. We don't know, so we should probably just give every child a Hep B vaccine. It's ludicrous. It is absolutely insane that we're doing this. More than that, Bobby, not too long ago, he did a press conference where he showed the data that, by the way, I knew for a really long time. People like me who have cared about this vaccine issue across all vaccines for a really long time, and understanding that there is a lot of risk that comes with this. And does the upshot outweigh these risks? Bobby laid it out pretty clearly that if you look at the data, we've been told for a long time that vaccines are the main reason why we have, essentially eradicated things like polio and measles, mumps, and, all of these things that we shoot up our children with to avoid these problems. But the data actually shows very clearly that almost all of these things were essentially already eradicated because of far better sanitation and far better things like antibiotics that were being applied to the general populace. That means all of those sicknesses were already going away before the vaccines were being applied to everyone. And then, of course, in 1986, under Reagan's lead, which is really disappointing, he gave immunity to all of these drug companies who are making vaccines, and saying, well, no one can sue you if anything happens. Now, why would they need to have this level of immunity if what they were making was safe and effective? It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. No other product in the country has this kind of immunity. And for why? So that we can go back to data that shows that they weren't even really, I believe this wholeheartedly. This is data that Bobby showed very clearly. People still debate it, obviously, because there's a lot of doctors who I think are really well-meaning people, but who have believed this trickle down of information that comes from vested, greedy interests, people that control the narrative are the people that are making the most amount of money doing this. And I would also argue to say that I think a lot of them are willing to pump children full of a lot of vaccines that might actually be injuring them, knowing full well. By the way, have you seen or have you heard of an inconvenient study? Del Bigtree made a documentary. Please go watch that documentary. Mickey Willis, a dear friend of mine, and Del Bigtree, and these wonderful people that are a part of MAGA. It will blow your mind. An inconvenient study, essentially, there was a doctor who did a study of vaccinated children versus unvaccinated children in the thousands, right? So it is a truly like it gives you the data points on both sides and what is downstream of being either a vaccinated child or an unvaccinated child. And shocker, the unvaccinated children have extremely low, like when it comes to asthma, eczema, things like autism, the vaccinated children were the ones who had multiple times more cases of what was going on, and they buried it because the guy on hidden camera, he says, I can't release this study. I would lose my job. I would lose everything if I brought this out. I would lose my career. I would lose my reputation. And this is the pressure that's coming from on high. And this is what was going on during the pandemic and during COVID. Any scientist or any doctor who dared question the narrative was shut down, was silenced, was censored, got their credentials were stripped from them, their relationships were ruined because they were questioning what is now becoming very evident that, oh my God, these COVID vaccines actually were incredibly detrimental to us. And they are causing all manner of side effects, including, by the way, there were 10 children who died in Pfizer's own trial, and they hid that information.
Moderna had a child die and hid the information from the public and removed them from the trial so that they wouldn't have to report on the evidence of it. It's outrageous. I told the audience, I reported at the time on the fact that children were dying in the wake of the vaccine, especially thanks to myocarditis and pericarditis. And of course, I got attacked by the leftist, media as a liar. And I said, do not give your child this vaccine without checking this out, especially if he's a teen and a boy. Girls too, though. I mean, it's so outrageous how they hid these facts from us. But talking like this is still dangerous if you're in certain industries like yours. You're not allowed to say these truths. And frankly, even mine. I mean, I'm independent media now, so I can say what I want. And you're independent too, but you do get jobs from Warner Brothers and so on. I heard you tell Fox News recently that you felt like you had been gray listed, so not fully blacklisted where you can't get a job. I assume gray means things slow down. There's more people who are like, it's a no just from hearing your name, but you're still able to get some work. So are you still experiencing that?
Yeah. It's been a really heavy journey. I'm not going to lie. A lot of people, I think that there were journalists, ironically, on the right who wanted, again, to make kind of a salacious story. When I first was being more vocal, they were saying things like, Zachary Levi blacklisted. Well, I never said that. I never said I was blacklisted. Because there are people still, I think, wonderful people who know me, know my heart, know that I genuinely, I care about everybody. I care about people on the left and the right. I want all of us to win. I don't think that we win so in order for us to win, other people have to lose. I think we all need to come to what is true and let sunlight be the best disinfectant. Let us get to the heart of all of it. If there are corrupt politicians on the left and the right, and there are, let all of them be taken out. Let us get to what is good and true and bring us back together and stop being kind of manipulated to fight against one another, which is the greatest distraction, so that we're not holding all of them accountable for their ridiculousness. I mean, insider trading, like things like that. Like, what are we doing? Like, I love Tim Burchett because he's one, like that guy is just going after it. He's like, he is one of the good guys. He doesn't care. And he's one of the good guys. I think Massey is as well. Again, I think there's people on both sides. There's people on the left that I think Fetterman, of all the people on the left, I mean, I think that Fetterman has shown himself to be truly reasonable and honorable. But anyway, when it comes to my career, when it comes to, yes, there's been incredible amounts of blowback. I think the hardest thing, to be honest, is friends of mine that I had for 2 decades who I would have thought no matter what, they know my heart. They know that I might believe something different than them, but they know my heart. And many did. People checked in with me like, hey, what are you doing? And I explained to them like, listen, guys, to me, they're like, all of these issues are important, but there are certain issues that are triage. We have to treat these things in some kind of order of priority. And when it comes to the health of every single person in this country, especially our children, we need to get to the root of the poisoning. We have got to get to the bottom of that. And also, having secure borders and also staying out of foreign wars, like things that Trump was willing to go and fight for. And, so I have all my issues, whatever, with, his Trumpiness. Like I've made that very clear. But we only had two options. That's how we had to go. That's what I felt like we had to go and do. And some people understood that. And a lot of people just simply did not. And they have ghosted me. They are not my friends anymore. And it has broken my heart, but I still love them. I still pray for them. When it comes to the work situation, there are still wonderful people who still see the value in me as an actor and as a man, and they're not all conservative either. There are people that are more liberally minded that still they don't hate me because I differ in my opinions with them, or I had the audacity to not toe that line and think that Kamala was somehow God's gift to politics, because she isn't, because she wasn't. And I don't think Donald Trump is either. I don't think he's some paragon of morality. But he was, of the two options, and this is constantly the problem, we're only given two options. To me, Bobby Kennedy would have been the absolute best, but the Democratic Party made that impossible for him. And therefore, it made it impossible for us as a nation to be able to vote for him. So this is where we ended. This is where we're at. And I'm grateful that I'm still working. I'm grateful that despite, my my coming out of the, political closet and opening my big mouth, there are still people that believe in me and support me. And I'm very grateful for that. But it's been really difficult. I'm not going to lie.
One positive potential thing of this merger that we discussed a minute ago is the Paramount Skydance folks are somewhat close to Trump. They seem a little bit more fair and balanced in their approach to politics. One of the purchasers financing that deal would be Jared Kushner. So I do wonder if they get Warner Brothers, whether that's more optimistic, that's more hopeful for people. I know you're not a conservative, but for people who are just not rabid leftists who want to work in Hollywood, maybe Warner Brothers could be the studio that still at least says, we'll employ you no matter what your politics. We really just care about whether you can act, like it used to be, or like at least it should be. I hope that happens. And I love watching you on screen, Zach. Good luck with it. Thanks for being here. Everybody should go see Not Without Hope. See it in the theater. Get your popcorn. Get your snow caps. It's probably my candy of choice.
Interesting.
Right? Old school. Like you need chocolate with the popcorn. What would you go for?
Listen, I think that's a fair mix. I would do some popcorn and some Raisinets, actually, or some Goobers.
Yes.
I think a goober, you want the sweet and the savory. I mean, that's a good mix. But sometimes I just go popcorn and like a big soda. That gives me my sweet and savory. I'm good with that.
Yep. Either way, you're going to love the movie Not Without Hope. But yeah, go for it. Treat yourself. That's the joy of the movie theater experience. Zach, all the best. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, Megyn. Great seeing you as always. Have a great day.
You too. All right. And we are back tomorrow with Andrew Klavan. And with Andrew Klavan, I'm going to break a little news with you guys about the Golden Globes and us. Okay. So there's a little tease for you.